On a cold September night in 1977, thousands of people in the Soviet city of Petrozavodsk looked up and saw something that should not exist. A huge glowing object appeared over the city, showering the sky with beams of light like a jellyfish made of fire. It hovered, pulsed, and then slowly drifted away, leaving frightened witnesses and a trail of unanswered questions. This was not a rumor. It was reported in Soviet newspapers, investigated by scientists, and quietly filed away as one of the strangest UFO incidents of the Cold War. Today, the Petrozavodsk phenomenon is almost unknown in the West. Yet it may be one of the best documented mass sightings in Soviet history, part natural mystery, part cosmic horror story. The night the sky opened in the early hours of September 20, 1977, residents of Petrozavodsk, a city near the border with Finland and the Baltic Sea, were waking up for work or coming off late shifts. Around 4 a.m., people noticed an intense, star-like object moving across the dark sky. It grew larger, brighter, and then suddenly stopped above the city. Witnesses described a luminous sphere surrounded by a halo, radiating thin beams of light that resembled glowing rain or tentacles stretching toward the ground. Some said it looked like a giant jellyfish made of plasma, silently floating above the rooftops and the waters of Lake Onega. Street workers, sailors, night shift employees at factories, and even policemen all reported the same eerie sight. For 10 to 15 minutes, the object hovered and changed shape, as if it were breathing or pulsing. Then it began to drift toward the west, leaving behind a faint, shining cloud that slowly dissolved in the dawn sky. Panic, phone calls, and official reports. This was not a case of one person seeing something alone in the forest. Dozens of witnesses contacted the authorities that very morning. Police stations and newspaper offices received frantic phone calls. Workers at the local hydrometeorological observatory also saw the phenomenon and filed formal reports. What makes Petrozavodsk different from many UFO cases is that Soviet media actually wrote about it. The state news agency TASS published a brief article describing a strange natural phenomenon over Karelia and nearby regions. Local newspapers ran more detailed accounts, quoting witnesses who spoke of rays of light cutting through the clouds and a huge luminous star that seemed to watch the city. In a regime famous for hiding uncomfortable facts, allowing such a story to reach print is remarkable. It suggests that even officials had no quick explanation and decided, at least briefly, to treat it as an unexplained atmospheric event. Beyond Petrozavodsk, a widespread mystery, it soon became clear that the object, or objects, were seen far beyond one city. Residents in other parts of northwestern Russia, as well as in Finland and even parts of northern Europe, reported similar glowing shapes in the sky that night. Pilots and sailors described a rapidly moving luminous body that then appeared to slow and expand. Some witnesses noted that their surroundings were unusually quiet, and a few claimed that animals reacted nervously, hiding or howling while the lights were overhead. The pattern suggested something high in the atmosphere or even in near-Earth space, but its behavior did not match normal satellites or meteor showers. The number and variety of reports forced Soviet scientists to take the incident seriously. An official commission was formed to investigate what became known as the Petrozavodsk phenomenon. The official explanation. A secret launch. Eventually, a possible explanation emerged. Around the same time as the sighting, the Soviet Union launched a satellite, Cosmos 955, from the Plesetsk Cosmodrome, hundreds of kilometers away. Some researchers argued that the strange lights were caused by exhaust gases and illuminated clouds from the rocket, spreading widely in the upper atmosphere and reflecting the rising sun. This kind of effect is known today from modern rocket launches, which sometimes create spectacular glowing plumes seen over wide areas. It is a plausible theory. A secret military launch, an unusual combination of weather and lighting conditions, and a population unfamiliar with how a high-altitude rocket plume might look. However, many witnesses and UFO researchers were not satisfied. They pointed out that some descriptions, especially the jellyfish shape and the stable hovering over Petrozavodsk, did not fit a fast-moving rocket or its exhaust. Others noted that similar launches before and after this date did not produce anything as dramatic or widely reported. A Soviet close encounter, as with many Cold War mysteries, the lack of complete data helps the legend grow. Some ufologists have suggested that the Petrozavodsk object was not a rocket effect at all, but a craft of unknown origin using the cover of a satellite launch to approach Soviet territory. They argue that the structured beams of light, the apparent changes in shape, and the long hovering period point to intelligent control rather than a random plume. Over the years, stories have grown around the event. Claims that radio equipment malfunctioned, that secret military reports described electromagnetic anomalies, or that the object was tracked on classified radar systems. None of these claims have been definitively proven, but they add layers of intrigue to an already strange incident. Science, secrecy, and the fear of the unknown. The Petrozavodsk phenomenon sits at the crossroads of science, secrecy, and folklore. On one side, there are real astronomical and atmospheric processes that can create bizarre, unfamiliar shapes in the sky, especially during dawn rocket launches. On the other side, there is the legacy of a closed society where people knew their government hid information, making them more likely to suspect that something extraordinary was being covered up. Four ordinary Soviet citizens in 1977, waking up to see an enormous glowing form hanging over their city, with rays of light falling like a cosmic jellyfish, must have felt apocalyptic. Some thought it was a sign of war, others a religious omen, and still others a visitation from something beyond Earth. Today, even with more data and declassified information, the event remains officially unexplained in detail. The rocket launch theory is widely accepted among scientists, but it does not answer every eyewitness description, leaving space, literally and figuratively, for mystery. Conclusion: the Petrozavodsk sky incident is a rare example of a Soviet UFO-like event that was openly reported, scientifically investigated, and still debated decades later. Whether it was an unusual combination of rocket exhaust and atmosphere or something truly unknown, it reveals how fragile our sense of reality can be when the sky itself seems to open. For horror fans, the image is unforgettable. A sleeping city, a sudden silent jellyfish of light spreading its glowing tentacles over the dark streets, and thousands of people staring up, wondering if this was the beginning of the end. For historians, Petrozavodsk is a reminder that even in a heavily controlled state, some phenomena are too strange to fully suppress.